America is still living in the shadow of the 9/11 effect. And the 9/11 effect is when all politics shifted to the right. So if you were middle of the line before 9/11, you're considered a leftist now, even though you have no characteristics of a leftist. You don't care about workers' rights. You don't care about insurance. You don't care about people getting ripped off by pharmaceutical companies. Those are positions that the right wing and these fringe groups have co-opted. But that was the leftist position. If you were some right wing asshole, now you're considered some middle of the line centrist. You know what I mean? Egalitarian. And if you were from the far right, those freaks, well, now you were just considered an everyday right winger. And I think that in many ways shapes the political atmosphere that you see in the United States now. People that can't come together. Why, brother? Because they don't even have a shared history, right? The propaganda has gotten so bad that if someone says that 2 + 2 = 4, right? Just to be angry, the other side will say, well, it might equal 5 in another dimension. Or, it's like arguing with a child. And I think that's what we've gotten. We've gotten to that kind of childish level of politics where even if it's bad and bad for the entire government, and yet it's a goal that one party wants to achieve, the other will be obstructionist. And, it goes to show you that everything is for sale. When you look at Mr. Biden and him basically going back on the promises that he made to immigrants and people that worked all during COVID, the immigrants that worked all during COVID and held the country economically together. And now they're all going to be deported under this title. Why is he making this concession to Republicans? Because he thinks and he's calculating they're going to fast track his weapons to Ukraine and Israel, which is where his priority is now. And he's willing to sell out other people to make it happen. And that, unfortunately, is politics. I mean, if you want to hear a more brutal story, you can ask the Kurdish people how it worked out for them fighting ISIS for the United States for 3 years. Here, fight ISIS for us. And as a reward, we're going to do nothing while the Turkish government bombs you into oblivion and scatters your people to the wind. So I think
we'll do you one better. We'll fund in arm ISIS. We'll do you one better.
Right, there you go.
Right.
So I think, we're getting to a level where I think you're right. Americans are disillusioned, but I think more than ever, they're sticking to the script. A lot of them are. Some of them see Mr. Trump as the only one that's ever bucked the system, right? As opposed to someone who's more like a broken clock, who's right twice a day, but you would never set your watch to a person like that. And unfortunately, when you look at Mr. Biden, he represents a dilapidated, broken. It's not even the left. He's a center right. He was the center right of the Democratic Party. He was basically a very liberal Republican, and he was tasked to run with Mr. Obama as kind of this anchor to him. He thought, oh, this young, liberal black guy, where is he going to take the country? And no, he wasn't going to take you anywhere that they didn't tell you they were going to go. And the guy who ran against him, John McCain, if he had won, we would be up in arms. We would have called him a murderer
John
for
McCain.
the things that he did.
He wouldn't be up in anything because the arms.
Yeah, but at the same time, we thought that he was the warmonger. And it turned out that the one that we elected, and I think that's the part that people get twisted, that what people show you in politics is only a glimpse of what actually exists. And by that, what I mean is there's a great program that I watched as a little kid called I, Claudius. And it was about the inner workings of like the Roman Empire and the murders and the intrigues at court. And it's a great little series. At the time that it was happening, no one knew it was happening. It was a guarded secret that this person was really this person's father, or that they had murdered someone in secret. But these people held the highest positions of power. And I'm sure that all of these guarded secrets will eventually come out someday. It'll just be so far in the future that it won't be able to affect the people that did it. So I for the people that say, oh, wait 20, 30 years, and we'll find the truth out about everything that went on with the war on terror. We'll find out where the money was laundered. Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. And there'll be some account eventually of what we did with those trillions of dollars. It may come to the fall of America. It may come to a complete revolution in the country. But at some point, we're going to get answers to those questions that people never wanted us to have, and it's going to be a sad day.
One thing that we often discuss sitting here in Pakistan is how, as young kids, when we looked at America, we thought of it as like this sort of bastion of free speech and, equal rights for all, and so on and so forth. And then, as we've gotten older, and as I would say that the world has gotten more and more interconnected, it started to seem like that. First of all, there's like this false dichotomy about, with the regards to Republican Democrat. It's more so that there's a group of very powerful individuals. They are always in charge, as Aman put it. It's sort of, you can think of it like a permanent government, and they pick and choose which topics you are allowed to talk about. And from the outside, it seems like that there's a lot of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, because for example in Pakistan, you have that room that you have.
The Overton window is sort of very narrow.
It's, yeah, very narrow, so you can you can't openly criticize certain segments of the government, for example. You could do that in the United States, but it seems like the lines are drawn in these corridors of power about what people can argue about, and those things you can argue your heart out. You can take it to the most maximum degree,
like gender.
for example. But then when it comes to like more serious things, it seems like Snowden, for example,
Manning.
or Chelsea Manning, or what was the guy, Jeffrey Epstein. So stuff like that just gets you immediately shut down.
Israel also.
Yeah. So what do you think? Because America's sort of foundation for its freedoms has always been that it's a democratic country that values the democratic process above anything else. But in regards to this,
America was founded as a republic. It's barely democratic.
I mean, it respects those principles within its own country, allegedly, but it doesn't respect those principles in practice anywhere else. And I think that if we're talking about like American democracy, I think it's interesting to point out some lesser known facts about the US. Whether or not it's a democracy, it can act like an empire in terms of its foreign policy, and therefore it transforms itself into one. And it has this kind of hybrid society where, yes, it's a republic in the sense that, there are elected officials that are supposed to come from the people to be part of this. But in a sense, what democracy without, a check and balance, like checks and balance systems, is really just, an office for hire. You've essentially created not a democracy, but a kleptocracy, a government of thievery, where people say, hey, man, if I can afford to pay for this, then I can create the laws that I want to. I can make it so me and my business is never taxed. I can make it so that I increase laws that affect, my sector of society better for me. And I don't care how that affects other people. And I think that in a sense became kind of government for hire. And in many ways, there are some very beautiful things about this country, some things that it's achieved. And in other ways, I think that people are blind to how people achieve those things. They achieve them by threatening to overthrow this country.